for Second Chronicles? Good evening and welcome to the book of Second Chronicles. And I think Gay called this book last month a dusty Old Testament book, and that may be the case for some people. It may even seem redundant, but I kind of see it as the counter at See's chocolate store. There were so many good things to choose from. It was really hard for me to figure out which way to go with it. And I was going to offer everybody a chocolate fix, but since you already have them, but if you want really good chocolate, come see me later. Tonight, as we look at the reasons that this book was written in the context of the people who heard it, then we're going to concentrate on the key passage in chapter 7 and see how its principles are illustrated in the book. Last fall, I started a chronological read through the Bible plan, hoping it would prepare me to present this book. I learned in the Hebrew Bible that the 1st and 2nd Chronicles are situated at the end of the book and not where we have them after 1st and 2nd Kings. In the plan I was following, the books of the prophets come after the kings. The prophets who lived during the kingdoms of Judah and Israel help set the context for 2nd Chronicles. They warn of the judgment to come due to the people's sin and of God's redemption from exile before it even happens. They show God's heart for his people and the pain that is caused by their rejection of him. The promises and warnings of the prophets are echoed in 2nd Chronicles. The author of this book is not identified, but it may have been Ezra. 1st and 2nd Chronicles were part of one larger book that also included Ezra and Nehemiah. This book was written to the Jewish people who had returned to Jerusalem after being exiled for 70 years. I got to move this up just a little bit more. What they may have experienced and felt as post-exiles is hard for us to relate to, but their experience reminded me of the stories we recently saw and heard on the news of the people whose homes were destroyed in the fires in California. As these people returned to their homes and their cities, they barely recognized the area and their houses. They felt like they had lost everything. In the interviews, we heard that people were grateful to be alive, but they were devastated and wondered if things would ever be the same. This is the experience of the post-exiles. They too ask the question, where is God now? And is there still a plan and a way forward? Chronicles is a spiritual record of the kingdom of Judah, as opposed to the historical record that is recorded in 1st and 2nd Samuel and the Kings. The chronicler, or the preacher, omits some of the negative issues of the kings, like Solomon's wives and David's adultery, because the book is focusing on temple worship and the promised line of David. 2nd Chronicles follows the lives of the kings of Judah from Solomon to the exile. The people who returned to the land of Israel returned to a drastically different place than the one prior to exile. The temple and the city walls were torn down. They had no king, no wealth like the prior kingdoms. Even when the temple was rebuilt, it was a far cry from the glory of the previous one. The point of this book is to show that God has kept his promise to the people despite their sin, and that there is hope for the future. Their national identity is still intact, as evidenced by the genealogies that are recorded in 1st Chronicles. The priestly line is still intact, so that worship can continue. And the Davidic covenant is still promised, but now it's a future promise. The book examines the spiritual lives of the 20 kings that rule between David and the end of the kingdom. This is God's commentary on their lives, his promises, and his warnings to the present generation. We see 5 of the 20 kings, Asa, Jehoshaphat, Joash, Hezekiah, and Josiah, who bring repentance and reform that result in revival and God's blessing. The common theme in each revival is the return to God's word and the removal of foreign gods and obedience to the laws that he has given. The first 9 chapters of Chronicles features King Solomon in the building of the temple. There is emphasis on the temple because the temple is where God meets with man. The garden-like decor of the temple is in remembrance of the Garden of Eden, where creation started and God dwelled with man. The place where the temple is built is Mount Moriah, where God appeared to David to stop a plague and to Abraham to provide a sacrifice instead of Isaac. The purpose in recounting the beauty of the original temple is not to celebrate man's achievement, but to demonstrate God's faithfulness to a generation that were asking, is God still with us? In these chapters, we find Solomon's beautiful prayer asking God for wisdom and God using the kingdom of Israel as a light to the world. The chronicler is both a historian and a preacher. The Israelites had left the God they loved and had become like all the nations around them, losing the ability to bring God to the world. As the author recounts the glory of the past, it is not to encourage them to regain the same glory, but to look humbly to God and depend on him. The failures we see in the lives of David, Solomon, and the kings that followed them were three types of sin. Personal sin, like pride, idolatry, and not trusting God. Now let's look more closely at Solomon's prayer during the dedication of the temple in chapter 6. Then we will examine God's response in chapter 7. So Solomon's prayer is all about dedicating the temple as a place where people can pray and God will hear them. He starts his prayer in 6:14, but first, let's look at his posture. He's on an elevated platform so that people can see him. He kneels down and spreads out his hands to heaven. His posture is of that of humility, and it is a model for his people. He uses the phrase, "There is no God like you." This phrase is repeated in the prayers of other godly kings, acknowledging that God is above all the other gods. He then asks God to keep his promise in continuing the kingly line of David as long as they are careful to walk in the laws of God. Then in verse 18, he asks, will God really dwell on earth with man? He realized no temple can contain God on earth, and yet he asks God to hear his prayer for mercy and to see the temple day and night. He identifies himself as a servant. Again, we see humility, and asks God to hear his prayers and the people's prayers, and that when God hears, to forgive. He knew that people will continue to sin and need forgiveness. Solomon then gives examples of when people and nations need God's intervention and forgiveness. When justice is needed because someone wrongs their neighbor, when a nation is defeated in battle due to sin, when there's famine, locusts, personal afflictions, or when God sends them to war. If and when these things happen and the people turn back, confess and cry out to God, Solomon asks that God hear them and forgive them so that they will walk in God's ways. He even mentions the foreigner and asks God to hear their prayers so that all the peoples of the earth may know and fear God. Finally, in verse 36, he says, when people sin, which all men do, and God's anger toward that sin results in being taken captive to another land, that when the people pray, repent, and turn back to God, that God would hear and forgive them. This is exactly what happened to the people the chronicler is addressing. They are the focus of this prayer. And in this, they see the reason for their captivity, but also hope for the future. God knows his people will be unfaithful, but he is still faithful. The judgment of exile was to purify and restore his people back to him through their repentance. Repentance and dependence on God in humility is their way back to God. After Solomon's prayer, God accepts the sacrifices by sending fire from heaven to consume them, and the glory of God fills the temple. Now, let's look at God's response to Solomon in chapter 7, starting in verse 12. This is tonight's passage. God appears to Solomon a second time after the temple has been completed, and this is his message. The first thing we notice is that God says he has heard Solomon's prayers and accepted the temple as a place for sacrifices. Then God gives a promise and a warning. It is interesting that the chronicler in verse 14 uses phrasing that was not in the prior account. This is to make it crystal clear to his audience that God still responds to prayer, repentance, and worship. In verse 13, God gives 3 examples of punishments that would come upon the nation as a result of their sin: no rain, locusts, and plagues. But this is followed by a reassurance that if his people will, 1, humble themselves, 2, pray, 3, seek God's face, and 4, turn from their wicked ways, then God will hear their prayers, forgive their sin, and heal their land. So our action words are humble, pray, seek, and turn. And God's response is hear, forgive, and heal. God promises his eyes and his ears see and hear the prayers offered in this place. God's name and his heart will be there forever. When I read this passage and I see the heart of God for his people, it reminds me of the story of the prodigal son in the New Testament that Jesus told us. When the son comes to his senses and repents of his sin, he returns home to see his father waiting to forgive and restore him to the relationship that he had before. 1 John 1:9 tells us, if we confess our sin, God is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. As I studied this passage, I really wanted some visual examples of what these verses say so that you would remember them. Everybody knows me as the kindergarten teacher with my props. But I really struggled with this. Then I had this idea. What if I had 4 emojis? We all know what emojis are. 1 for each word. 1 for humble, 1 for pray, 1 for seek, and 1 for turn. Of course, we know there's a prayer emoji. And turning could be like a reverse arrow. But guess what? There's no emoji for humble, and not seeking God's face either, but I expected that. To be humble is to acknowledge that God is God, and we are not. And that is not something we like to do. The closest image I found in Google Images is a man on his knees. But we know that an outward posture does not always reflect a humble heart. In my volunteer clinic, I often get an EKG on my patients. And this can give us some information on a heart, but it can't tell us the exact state of the vessels inside the heart. We need more tests for that. God is not just looking for a humble posture, but for a humble heart. The rest of this book contains examples of kings who either had hearts that sought God and God heard and answered their prayers, or, like the majority of the kings, ignored God's ways, worshiping idols, and trusting in things other than God. Their examples were both to encourage and to warn the audience of the chronicler. God promised Solomon in 7:17 and 18 that if he continued to walk in the ways of God, his throne would be established forever. But God also warns in verse 19, if Solomon turns away from God's decrees, worshiping and serving idols, then the temple will be rejected and the people will be uprooted from the land. The picture of the destruction of the temple and the exile of the people in verses 19 through 21 accurately depicts what actually happened to the people in the temple. The rest of the book of 2 Chronicles, we see the prayer of Solomon and the Lord's reply played out in the lives of the kings who followed Solomon until the end of the kingdom. After Solomon, in chapter 10, we meet Rehoboam, Solomon's son. When faced with the decision of how to rule, Rehoboam does not humble himself or seek God's guidance. So what is the result? The kingdom is split, with Jeroboam leading 10 tribes of Israel and Rehoboam continuing to rule the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. This was part of God's plan and God's judgment on Solomon, because at the end of Solomon's life, he let his heart be turned away from God to the idols of the foreign women he loved. However, remember there were 5 kings in Judah who sought after God and did see spiritual revival. Due to obedience to the word and repentance from idol worship, these kings saw great miracles of deliverance as they trusted in God. The story of Jehoshaphat is one of my favorites, and it's in 2 Chronicles 17. Jehoshaphat was a king who followed God like David did, and God was with him. He starts his reign by sending out the priests and officials to teach the people the book of the law. We also see he's not a perfect king because he ends up supporting wicked King Ahab of the northern kingdom and going into battle with him. But when his life is endangered by this, God still saves him. Then in chapter 20, we see his reaction when a vast army gathers against him. Jehoshaphat is frightened. This is not a fun situation. This is scary. But he resolved to seek the Lord. He humbled himself and declared a fast. Everyone in the kingdom turned up to seek the Lord. Jehoshaphat prayed before the people, and God gave this response: "Don't be afraid or discouraged, because the battle is not yours, it's God's." And the light keeps hitting me in the wrong spot, sorry. And so Jehoshaphat goes into battle with an army of singers at the front of the troops, praising and worshiping God. What an example of how to face trials in our own lives. We look at how we see God's promise in chapter 7, verse 14, played out in this story. A humble heart, prayer, seeking God, and turning away from sin led to God's hearing and answering prayer, resulting in great victory. The end of Jehoshaphat's reign is kind of discouraging as he again makes an alliance with wicked King Ahab. Unfortunately, we find even the quote-unquote good kings had failures in their lives that led to judgment. However, we still see God is faithful even when his people are not. The book spans the kings of Judah because the northern kings of Israel had no king who followed after God. God's plans continue despite his people's faithlessness. Humbly seeking God in prayer and repentance was still the way back to God. The last part of the book repeats the prophecy of Jeremiah that predicted that the nation that had captured them would themselves be captured. Isaiah, another prophet, prophesied that the king of Persia would decree that the people would return to Israel and build a temple for the Lord their God. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah continue the story of God's faithfulness to the people of Israel. Even though the kings of Judah were unable to stay faithful to God, the people still had a hope for the one who would bring deliverance and healing for the nations. But you may be asking, what does this passage have to do with us? The physical temple is gone. Where does God hear our prayers? In fact, by the time Jesus came, the temple was no longer the house of prayer that it was designed to be. Jesus called it a house of thieves. But Jesus means Emmanuel, which is God with us. And he represented the new way that God would dwell with us. In the book of John, he referred to himself as the temple when he told the people that the temple would be destroyed and then rebuilt in 3 days. He became the perfect sacrifice that restored the relationship between God and man. Jesus brings the healing that was promised by God. Isaiah the prophet wrote about this promised healing in Isaiah 53, verse 5. He was pierced for our transgressions and crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. Jesus' death on the cross brings us healing from our sin. After Jesus left, the Holy Spirit came to live in believers and become the place where God dwells. Hebrews tells us that Jesus is now in heaven as the perfect high priest interceding for us. 1 Corinthians 3:16 tells us, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst?" And again, Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body." So, together as the church, we become the place where God dwells. Peter tells us in 1 Peter 2:5, "You also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ." God dwells in us through the Holy Spirit. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross brought healing for our sins and restored our relationship to God. We will still fail him, but we have direct access to the Father through Jesus, so that when we humble ourselves, pray, seek his face, and repent, God hears us, forgives us, and heals us. What a great God we serve. Now I want to go back and show you my attempt at the emoji emotions that I came up with for 2 Chronicles 7:14, because that is our key verse, and I want you to remember it. So let's read it again. You can read it with me on your sheet if you want. If my people, who are called by my name, humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. So, for humble, I'm not going to just bow my head. I'm going to bow my head, and I'm going to make a heart to remind us that it's a humble heart. For pray, that's easy. Folded hands together. Seek, we're going to hold out our hands toward heaven like Solomon did. And turn, we're going to turn our finger from this direction to that direction, because repenting is turning away from sin and toward God. And for God's response, he hears us. That's easy. He hears us. He forgives us, and he forgives us through Jesus. So we're going to make the symbol of the cross, because it's cross in sign language. I read that somewhere. And then, yeah. And then for healing, we're going to point to the nail prints in Jesus' hands, because by his stripes we are healed. So let's try it together. We're going to be humble. We're going to pray. We're going to seek. And then we're going to turn. And God's response is he hears us, he forgives us, and he heals us. As we close tonight, I want to leave you with this last verse from Paul in Romans 8:12 and 13. And again, Isaiah says, the root of Jesse will spring up, the one who will rise to rule over the nations. In him the Gentiles will have hope. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And if you need a chocolate fix, come see me.
Thank you, Sharon. We're going to move on now to the A and the P of the SOAP word, and that is application and prayer. And that's something that I'm going to give you a few moments to do on your own, just between you and God. You can think about what he has said to you tonight from his word and how that would apply to your life, and talk to him about that, and then we'll sing in a moment.
In front of you is a little table tent number. So identify that. Some of you brought some fabulous things, some books and puzzles. Some of us did not. All of us get to participate in the swap. There are plenty of things for everyone. So even if you didn't bring something, you definitely get to go home with some new treasure and goodie. So what we're going to do is we are going to go in chunks into the swap room, and you're going to have about 3 minutes to pick out either 2 books or 1 puzzle. And then I'll holler when time's up, and you need to hustle back, and the next group gets to go. And the folks left at the table, I've got some activities for us to do while we're out here. And we're not going to go table by table. We're going to go number by number. So you will be going with other representatives from other tables. Oh, my. So key would just be, and so there are puzzles and books. Again, 2 books or 1 puzzle. And then at the end, there will be leftovers, and we'll do a mad free-for-all at the end of the evening, because we really don't want anything to go back. And then there are a couple other fabulous things. There are 4 delightfully beautiful potted house plants. There are several very pretty petite posters and some pretty cool finger puppets. And those are first come, first serve, clear those cool things out. And they're here from some of our gals, too. So, okay. So I'm going to draw a number, so get ready. Look at your number. Who goes first? Oh. Okay, I need to not look. Staring at it while I was looking. Okay, the first number is number 4. If you are number 4, please go to the swap room. And you have the timer set. Okay, for the rest of you at your table, here's what you're doing. Please pull your phone out. Pull up photos. Go to July 2024 and pick a picture and share it with your table mate, someone beside you. Here's my favorite photo from July 24. Let me tell you about it. You can talk amongst yourselves too. Anytime in July 2024. Okay, time. If you're in the swap room, wrap it up and come on out. Our next swap room group is going to be numbers 1. So if you have number 1, get after it. Go hit the swap room. And for those of you still at the table, would you please turn to your neighbor and swap a story related to a bad smell? swap a story related to a bad smell. Okay, time. Okay, your next number. I just have to say I can't hear very well, but I'm pretty sure I heard Sharon, our esteemed teacher, talk about smelly pits. I think I overheard that. I don't care whether it's true or not. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Sharon. That's what I heard, and I'm sticking with it. Okay. The next number is number 6. 2 books or 1 puzzle. Go find some stuff. And for those of you who are left, here's your assignment. Pick up your number and swap seats with people at your table. You're changing seats because you're going to talk to someone new. Swap seats, but take your number with you. Keep your number, but swap seats. If someone at your table doesn't move well, swap all around her. We get the same effect. Once you've swapped seats, turn to your new elbow partner and tell them and hear from them something they're looking forward to about spring. So with your new elbow partner, talk about what are you looking forward to this spring? Or your old elbow partner if you rearranged in a perfectly the same format. What are you looking forward to in the spring? Okay. Our next swap number is number 2. So if you are number 2, head on into the swap room. For those of you left behind, swap something that you thought was cool when you were young that now you think isn't maybe very cool. I'll start. I thought feathered hair was very cool, and I don't necessarily enjoy it as much as I used to. Partly because I have fine, thin hair and I could never do it with my hair. Something cool when you were a kid or younger, or last year or yesterday, that you now know isn't really that cool. Okay. Anyone? What from your table was cool that now you know isn't cool? I'm by myself. Oh, go-go boots. I think they're still kind of cool. If you can pull them off, you might still be cool. I'm just saying. Go-go boots. Anything else? Oh, purple eyeshadow. I'm with you. I don't know that I can pull that off. Good. Blue, I'm not a fan necessarily either. Okay, our next number for swap is number 3. Contain yourselves, but go, go, go. Okay. Swap the weirdest thing that you're afraid of. I'll go first. Not really me. I'm afraid of spiders. That's not weird. We all are. They're scary and creepy. The weirdest thing you're afraid of. Let's talk about me. I'm afraid of spiders. That's not that weird. But my coworker is afraid of moths. And I think that's weird. Cindy is also weird. No, really. He's afraid of rats. That's not that weird. What are you afraid of? Me. Okay. For our last group, you know who you are. You are number 5. Number 5. Last but not least, head in there and get some good stuff. And for those left at the table, swap with each other what you brought, if you brought anything, and what you're taking, and why you picked what you picked. What'd you bring? What'd you take? And why? That's cool. You have it. Yeah. Or just to be more social. Yeah. Yep. 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 I bought something for Jay for the same reason, and it's like a piece of like felt, and you do the puzzle on it, and then you actually can just roll it up. It does. And it works great. So same thing, and then just shove it in the closet, and it all just stays, and then undo it. For exactly that reason. Okay, that wraps up our 2025 swap activity. Marcia, I'm ready when you are ready.
Well, that was fun. Hope you got something that you love. And if not, you can swap it before you leave tonight, probably. So, and do take whatever's left in there, anything you want. Okay, it's now time to fill out our Connect card. That's the bottom of your stack of papers there. Let us know that you were here, and then let us know if you are able to partner with somebody for side-by-side Bible reading. You can let us know who your partner is, or you can let us know that you would like to be partnered with someone, and we will get in touch with you. And yes, if you need to move back to your spot to get to your original papers, you can. And then if you would like to join the Sunday group, you can also let us know that. So I'll give you a moment to just fill that out. At the end of the night, we'll drop those in the basket that's over by the door on your way out. And then as well, be sure to include any ways that we can be praying for you this month. The Women's Ministry Leadership Team commits to praying for you regularly, and so if you would like prayer in any special way, please feel free to mark that and write that on the back of your card, and we'd be happy to pray. All All right, as you already heard, we're going to be reading Daniel this next month, and Sandy Sachs is going to come and give us a 5-minute introduction to the book of Daniel.
Thank you, Emily. If you don't know, she's my personal cheerleader. I was a little nervous when Sharon came up first because I know she always comes with props, and I was like, darn it. I know. Maybe later. I'll try and catch up. All right. I'm Sandy, and I'll be giving you a quick overview of the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is written by Daniel himself, most likely written in the 6th century BC during the Babylonian exile. The first half contains stories of Daniel's life with his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The second half of Daniel is more of just his visions. Throughout, we'll see that God is in control of it all. In the first half, Daniel starts when he and his 3 friends were captured and taken from their home by King Nebuchadnezzar to serve himself as the king, of course, and to train them in the Babylonian culture and literature. They were given new names. Daniel was called Belteshazzar. Hananiah was called Shadrach. Mishael was called Meshach. And Azariah was called Abednego. They were not only expected to learn the culture, but live in it as well. Daniel knew that even though he was captured and there was a new king, that God was in control. So he wasn't worried. They were expected to eat a diet of the Babylonians and to give up their Jewish diet. They requested only vegetables and water, and after 10 days, God not only sustained them physically on diet, but also it was obvious that they were more skilled in literature, wisdom, and for Daniel, understanding the visions and dreams, and far exceeded the others. You will read about the amazing faithfulness and trust in the Lord. We'll see God showing them, God helping them see the king's dreams, not even just interpreting them. Again, something that no one else could do with God because they had God's help. The first dream was a large statue made of all different material representing different kingdoms, and then a large stone that crushed it all, that represents God's kingdom. God's kingdom that is in control, as we know. The faithfulness and trust continues when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refuse to worship a golden statue representing the king. With great faith, they were put into, of course, the fiery furnace. This has been fun for me to go through all this because I didn't get to learn all this when I was a kid. So I suggest reading these stories from the child within you. They were put in the fire furnace, bound up, and then to be seen inside, unbound, walking around with not 3 of them, but 4. And the 4th figure was like the Son of God's. They walked out unharmed because, of course, God was still in control. In chapter 4 and 5, Nebuchadnezzar and his son, when his son was king, both needed Daniel's help interpreting dreams at different times, of course. But the father and son are both filled with pride and power of their kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar was eventually driven mad and lived with the beasts, just going crazy. But by the grace of God, he lifted his eyes to heaven, and reason was returned to him. His son should have known this story and remembered it. In the end, he did not remember, and he drank wine from the golden cups, boasting that he had the power to do so, and his father had taken those from the temple from Jerusalem. God was not happy, of course, and wrote on the wall for Daniel to read and foresaw his destruction. And this brings us to chapter 6, which again is a classic. The king was tricked. David was set up and thrown into the lion's den for worshiping God when he was told not to. But God is in control. God sent an angel to shut the lion's mouth and keep Daniel safe. Through all these stories, we learn that in the good and the bad, God provides and is always in control. The second half is about Daniel's visions. Visions of kingdoms rising and kingdoms falling, visions of beasts in the form of animals with multiple horns to represent beastly kingdoms and evil kings. But as we have heard, God is in control. Even in these visions, there is comfort. Comfort in this right here, saying, "Behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed." And it continues where Daniel gets older, becomes curious, timeline with these visions, and timeline of Israel's exile, which he knew was 70 years. He opens his heart and prayers to God, confessing his sins, pleading for mercy. Then the angel of Gabriel comes to help him understand. He tells him Israel's sin and rebellion has continued, and so will a time of exile for 7 times longer. That would be disappointing. In the last few chapters, Daniel understandably is a bit discouraged, but God is in control, as we know. He sends his angel that both depletes Daniel's energy and with a touch gives him energy and encouragement. This brings us to more kings, the north and the south, back to prideful kings, war and destruction. But in the end, we know that God is in control and is not for us to worry. These are hard times that Daniel's went through, just like we'll be in hard times. That's why God's people are to go on living with a faithful life in this corrupt world, knowing that you shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of the days. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Hopefully that whets your appetite to dig into those stories more and to see that God is in control, see how he works. Well, as we wrap up now, just a few announcements before you go. As you leave, you can drop your Connect cards in that basket over there on the table. There are some side-by-side notebooks there. If you don't already have one, please feel free to take that. And if you need any extra Daniel materials, those are there as well. If by chance you had on your calendar a Connection Cafe coming up for women on April 12th, that has been postponed. I've had a few people ask me, so I just want to make sure you know it's been postponed, but we will do that again, hopefully in the fall, so you can look forward to that. If you would like someone to pray with you before you leave tonight, we'll be over there by the fireplace, and feel free to stop by. We'd love to pray with you. Next month, on May 1st, we will be meeting here again. So be preparing ahead, so when you flip that calendar, you're ready, because First Thursday is on May 1st. And the theme will be School Spirit. So you can wear your school colors, your school shirt, your Letterman jacket, any school that you went to. If you were the mascot, I don't know, cheerleading outfits, whatever you want to wear that has your school colors. And if you were homeschooled, you get to pick. So wear whatever are your favorite colors. So that's next month, May 1st, School Spirit, and we'll see what else comes of that theme. And as always, you can let us know that you're able to come by RSVPing on the church website. We appreciate knowing how many to set up for. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sandy, for teaching us tonight. Thank you, Scott, for the awesome dinner. Yes. And please, take as many puzzles and books as you want before you go. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Please feel free to hang around and visit with each other. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month. And I hope you enjoy Daniel.